Moonstone, otherwise known as Mariah, and today we are back with a brand new video. Today I am going to be starting a new series I would like to call Mining Mysteries. I am going to be telling you guys scary stories over Minecraft gameplay. I love to play Minecraft and I love to hear a good story, so I thought why not combine the two of them together to create this beautiful little series that I am so excited about. So without further ado, let's get into the very first episode of Mining Mysteries. The stories prepared for Mining Mysteries may be disturbing for some viewers. Some stories may have graphic details not suitable for everyone. Viewers' discretion is advised. These stories are found on Reddit, so the legitimacy of them is unknown. It is up to you to decide whether or not you believe. I'm a nurse in a haunted hospital. We don't tell the patients these stories. I work as a nurse in a post-surgical unit in the biggest hospital in my city. Patients come from hundreds of miles away to get their operations here. The surgeons are known to be the best. But what we don't tell the patients, what we're not supposed to tell them, is that there are ghosts here. Just like any other hospital, people pass away and their spirits sometimes linger. Or maybe it is just a fragment of them that remains behind. Something that science can't explain yet. There have been more than a few events that have raised the hair on the back of my neck, and some have sent me into hysterical screaming fits, but those types of reactions are frowned upon in the hospital, so I try to stay calm. There was a time a few months ago when a patient told me she felt like there were 3 other people in the ward room with her, in each of the other 3 beds around her. They were talking back and forth and whispering, she said. But the weird thing was, she was alone in the 4-bed room. I pulled back the curtains and showed her myself. All of the other beds were empty, and there were no visitors or staff in the room with her. As if that weren't disturbing enough, a few weeks later a different patient said the exact same thing, when she had been left alone in the same room. She described it exactly the same way, saying they were whispering back and forth and it was keeping her awake. I felt a chill up my spine when she told me that, but reassured her that the room was empty and she was simply just imagining things. People have enough to worry about when they're recovering from surgery. We don't need them fretting about spectators and ghosts when they should be worried about discharge appointments, lifting restrictions, and medication adjustments. So we just keep these stories to ourselves. Some nurses said they couldn't sleep in the certain rooms during breaks on night shift since they had too many bad experiences there. When I asked them about it, they said they had bad dreams and felt like someone was in the room with them, standing over them while they slept. I don't believe in those things myself, so I slept in there on the night shift and found out firsthand why nobody else wanted to use it as a nap room during breaks. I had the most realistic waking dream I'd ever had, where I'd awoken in the storage room and felt like someone was there with me, watching me from the corner of the room, their dark outline visible in the dim room. When I went to turn on the lights, they didn't work and the door wouldn't open, and for some reason in my dream, which seemed like reality, I chose to lie back down and go to sleep again, while the thing crept closer and closer, vanishing only to reappear just above me. It felt like my eyes were open the whole time and I was forced to watch, paralyzed as it hovered over top of me. For what felt like hours, it was watching me while I slept, as I struggled and was unable to move. I finally came to my senses and finished my break early, going back to work and trying to forget about the horrible experience. But I refused to sleep in that storage room again. There was another event which haunts me to this day, especially since I'm heading in for the night shift right now, in just a few minutes. Another nurse told me a story on the night shift last week, and I've been thinking about it a lot since then, and it's been occupying my mind more and more, especially when I'm alone in the break room at night. We have a staff room where there are 2 small couches and a TV. Some nurses go in there to sleep during breaks on the night shift, and we try our best not to wake them up. She was sleeping on the couch there one night, and a bright light woke her up. There's an adjoining room with the bathroom and lockers, so she figured one of the nurses had gone in there and left the light on. I looked over at the door, she told me. You know how it has those little glass windows and you can see through the other side? Yeah, I said, I see that every day. So there's this woman on the other side of the door and she's looking at me through the glass. I got shivers up my spine when she said this. Maybe because it was the night shift, or maybe because that was where I was going on my break in an hour to sleep. And so I see her there, but she's not really looking at me. She's kinda just staring straight ahead. And the first thing I notice about her is her hair. It was in this very old-fashioned sort of style, not like anything you'd see today. It was like it was from the early 70s or something. Maybe. She was wearing these funky blue pinstripe scrubs and a nurse's cap. You know, nobody wears a nurse's cap these days, and the scrubs, they look like the ones, you know, in the lobby, how they have the ones on display from way back then. They look just like that. I was nodding along. I was able to picture all of it as if I was there with her. Another walked in and heard us, and she says, "What are you guys talking about?" "Ghosts," I replied. He scoffed. "You guys believe in that stuff?" The two of us shared a knowing look. He hadn't been working on the floor long enough to have seen anything himself, and some people just aren't attuned to these things. The nurse went back to her story. So she's just standing there, staring straight ahead, and I thought it was the IV nurse at first, because sometimes they come in during night shift and use the bathroom or whatever. So I yelled at her, "Hey, turn the light off, will ya? I'm trying to sleep in here." But she just kept staring straight overhead, so I just put the pillow over my head and tried to sleep some more. Then, when I woke up later on, the light was still on. I asked around, nobody came in there during the night, and that room is locked. So it couldn't have been a patient. And I saw the IV nurse later on, and they were not dressed like that. So yeah, I'm pretty sure I know who it was, though. According to her, the woman was the ghost of a nurse who had died driving home after a long night's shift. She had fallen asleep at the wheel. Based on the description she'd given, an older coworker had recognized her. She'd said that was exactly what an old nurse who used to work there looked like, and from that point on, the nurse who told me this story always remembered to stay awake behind the wheel. She said, "Every time my eyes start to blink and I'm getting tired, I think about that old nurse with the curly gray hair standing behind the glass and I'm wide awake again. It's better than drinking a cup of coffee, I'll tell you that." Something occurred to me as she finished this story. That's really weird. My patient in room 14 told me last night that they saw someone peeking their head in the room, looking at them, and sometimes they would stand in the doorway and just stare at them for a while. She said the person had a very old-fashioned haircut and old-fashioned scrubs. She thought it was a ghost, or maybe she was hallucinating. Ghosts and hallucinations are commonplace at the post-surgical floor, and sometimes it can be difficult to tell the two apart. Pain medication-induced post-operative delirium is not unheard of, especially in the elderly. She thought it was the medicine that she was taking, so none of that tonight. She was just going to be sticking with Tylenol. "Good idea," the other nurse said, and I excused myself. I'd figured that I'd check on my patients, especially the ones in room 14, and I was somewhat unsurprised to see a woman in blue pinstripe scrubs with a cap looking at them from the doorway. Despite my terror, I began to walk on shaky legs down the hall towards her. She turned to look at me and went away from the patient's room, going down the side end of the hall. I ran up to catch up with her, needing to see for myself who she was. When I got to the hall and looked to the left, she was gone. It had only been a few seconds. I ran down the length of the hallway to the next corridor. There was another one much larger, but she could not have disappeared so quickly unless she had went into a patient room. But again, she was gone. My heart was pumping in my chest. I refused to believe it was a ghost. Such things don't exist. They just couldn't. Room 9 was the only one she could have gone into in such a hurry. I went in and found all of the patients were wide awake, despite it being the late hour of the night. It was 3 a.m. Everyone should have been asleep. "It's freezing in here. Can you get me a warm blanket?" asked the patient by the door. I told her, and she nearly screamed in fright. "Oh my goodness," the old woman said. "I didn't see you there." "Who are you talking to?" I asked. "The other nurse, the one who just came in. Where did she go?" I felt a presence behind me, and I looked to see the shape of something moving, but then it was gone, like a wisp of smoke on a windy day. Not wanting to tell the woman it had been a ghost, I just made up an excuse and told the woman went to get her a blanket. Nothing seemed to help, though. None of the patients in that room slept very well that night, if any slept at all. They kept saying they felt that there was something laying in bed right next to them. Come to think of it, it's the same room where patients kept imagining other people were in the room with them, except this time it really was full. I haven't seen the ghost nurse since that night, and I'm hoping that I never do again. It's terrifying, to say the least, since I don't really understand why she's still here. And you never know exactly when she's going to show up. I'm heading into work for another night shift now. Wish me luck. I think I'm gonna need it. They reach out through my reflections. Hello, everyone. I am not a speculative person. The paranormal has never held a spot in my mind for more than a fleeting moment. My life is built on practicality and cemented in reality. But recently, that foundation has cracked, and I don't know where else to turn. No one I've reached out to has believed me, and they think I made this up. But how could I? Why would I? This doesn't make any sense to me, but maybe to your eyes it will. Some months ago, a family friend of mine who I was close to during my childhood disappeared right off the face of the earth. No explanation. Granted, I wouldn't be the one who would receive such an explanation, but still, she was a person who the rest of the world noticed was gone. She held a job serving the local community, and everyone around town knew her by name. Her once loud apartment, filled with the sounds of her singing and the smells of cooking, became still and silent. The type of silence you hear after a deep snowfall. It was unnatural and seemingly unexplainable. So much so that in only a span of a day her neighbors were knocking feverishly at her door to check on her. No answer. No noise. No sign of anything even breathing within. They called the police for a welfare check, urging them that something must be wrong, even though it had only been a day since her silence. They forced the door open a couple hours later. Within her apartment they found nothing. Not a trace of her. Not even a loose strand of hair, dirty dishes, or anything that pointed to her being there recently. Just her pictures, furniture, and her clothes were there. Remnants of her existence were the only signs of her life being lived within those walls. No one had seen her leave since the silence fell. The cameras in the hallway of her apartment building showed her enter the day before like normal. She never left again. Her place was on the 15th floor. The fire escape is enclosed with cameras. She'd never come out of the apartment. According to the recordings, no windows were found open. There was no body. Roughly around 2:30 p.m., she was erased from this world. That was 4 months ago. No one has heard from her since. Her family has moved their search out of town now, thinking she must have left or escaped some unfortunate fate. Her things in the apartment were moved to storage. The whole place was being cleaned and freshly painted to provide a home for someone new. It seemed like just a slightly mysterious disappearance, right? But still, plausible in some regards. That all changed when the letter was pushed through. It's branded itself to me now. I only hope someone out there knows how to help. One night, in the dark hallway of her floor, a small letter was pushed through from under the door of the abandoned apartment. That letter was addressed to me. Her friend Jake, who had been painting the place, dropped it off the same day. He explained that when he found the letter, he had hoped it was her who came back to leave it for me. Hoping for some news of her, he immediately went to the landlord and asked to see the camera feeds to see who left the letter. His heart dropped when he saw the recording. I almost didn't believe it until I saw it myself. In the grainy footage, all that was seen was the letter being pushed from underneath the closed apartment door. After seeing the tape, Jake asked the landlord if anyone else besides him had a key. The landlord assured him that no one could have gotten in there. It was impossible. Almost as impossible as her disappearance. They reviewed the camera feeds for the days and weeks before and the times when someone could have gotten in unaware. But the only people seen going in and out were her family and her friends, and they were all seen leaving. The letter was in her writing. Anyone that lived in the community could tell that. Small, neat words were written on the outside, right in the center of the pale white envelope. This is what it said. For Thomas, something to remind me that our fears and doubts can doom us. We hold the key to the doors of memory. We can lock the haunted ones away. The tone was all wrong. She had never spoken like that before. I should have waited, but in anticipation to know more of this new voice she spoke in, I quickly opened the letter. A disclaimer, because I have nowhere else to turn to, I have written what was enclosed below. However, before you read on, I need to warn you. Once you read her words, there is no turning back. This becomes real. You begin to pass by it out on your peripheral vision. It peaks. I am not sure if it will affect you the same way it's affected me, but I need all the answers I can get now. Can't take it anymore. Someone else has to understand. This is a line you should not cross. Here is the letter from under the door. You drive down a busy road, cutting through an old wooded place. It is winter and the trees have lost their canopy. With that gone, they also lose their ability to shade us from the pain that they obscure. You see it now as you rush past the sleeping boughs, a place you remembered from your childhood. For a fleeting second it's there, but you move too fast and it's gone from view. The image of it lingers in your thoughts. You believe that place wasn't even real, just a combination of memories that melded together into one blurry whole. An imagination of different experiences attaching themselves to that place, like your subconscious was cataloging those memories within that lost building. You haven't thought about it in a while. It usually comes back to you through the hazy mist just before sleep overtakes you, or when you awake for no reason in the middle of the night. You can see the doors to the building, the lights flashing behind the glass, the silhouettes of long-forgotten people dancing on the window panes. Were they running? Did it get them? It has been long since you ran beside them, but you remember how they called your name. Their smiles flashed before you. You see their faces now in your windshield. You quickly look behind you to see if they're in the car with you. They've caught you now. The car meets an immovable object. You meet your fate. There is no movement for you now. Only the wind blowing through the trees. Emerald fingers begin to grow from the branches. The fingers turn to hands, and the hands hold you back forever in the memories of another. You look out from the window of the forgotten place and see them pass by. You pound at the doors, calling out to him. They do not hear you. See you soon. And that was the end of the letter. Through every window I see the shadows standing. They watch me move, their hands on the panes. No one else sees them. They have no eyes, but if you look too closely, they will move. I haven't slept in many days. My eyes hurt after I finish reading it. No one else has been able to read those words. Every time I show them the letter, they just seem to see a jumble with no discerning meaning. They think I've made this up, but yet every reflection has been infected. I don't know anything about the place mentioned in the letter, a place of forgotten things hidden behind trees. It's too vague. It could be anywhere, but I know that the answers must lie there. I see the thing's fingers on my screen now as I'm typing this. Somebody else needs to know. Somebody else needs to know I was here, that I existed and this thing is trying to take me. I only hope that you never see it. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. If anyone has heard of a place like this, please reach out. The shadows haven't tried anything yet. They just stare. They have no eyes, but I can feel them boring into my soul. It's becoming cold. I don't think I have much time left. Soon I'll know where they took her. There's something in my house that isn't human. Well, I guess the title is misleading. It's not my house anymore. I moved out as soon as my minimum wage job at Wendy's made me enough money. Whenever anyone asks me why I gave up my family estate on an acreage to live in a shitty one-bedroom, 400 square foot apartment, I just say that I wanted my independence, but that's not the real reason. My childhood home is weird. I don't even know if I could call it haunted. It's not like there were doors slamming shut or disembodied footsteps. A haunting isn't the word for it, I guess, but it wasn't normal. Growing up, I lived with my mom, my dad, and my little sister Jenna. Well, those were all the humans that were living in it anyway. The earliest odd experience I remember, I was about 8 and Jenna had just started to talk. I would be playing with her in her crib when Mom was making dinner, yet she'd always be looking right behind me. She'd point and giggle and say, Dada. No, Dada's at work, I told her. Dada is coming home after dinner. She still pointed. Dada. The thought crossed my mind. Grown-ups always told me I look exactly like my dad. Maybe Jenna just thought I was Dad for some reason. But then I realized she wasn't pointing at me, she was pointing behind me. The upstairs hallway where our bedrooms were had always creeped me out. Not for any particular reason, it was just always darker than it should have been. Whenever I was called down for dinner or woke up in the night to go pee, I always tried to run through the hallway as fast as I could. Jenna was pointing at her open nursery door leading into the hallway. I froze. Slowly I turned around. And for a split second, I saw him. It was my dad. Same work clothes he always wore, same haircut, even the same stance. But it wasn't Dad. His eyes didn't have the same kindness as Dad's did. He was just staring at us, menacingly, but as soon as I saw it, it was gone, like it was never there. Oftentimes at night, I'd hear Jenna awake in the middle of the night, giggling about Dada or Mama, or most disturbing, Addie. Adam's my name, and before she could talk, she called me Addie. But I was in bed. Who was that playing with my sister? If it was just that, I wouldn't care much. Kids see and say strange things, but it didn't end there. Sometimes it was small. Maybe Mom would have insisted Jenna and I had been calling for her when we were both quiet. Maybe Jenna had accused me of breaking her Barbie doll, swearing she saw me enter her room. But there were some things, big things, that still chill me to this day. It was late at night. I was 14 and Jenna was about 6. Mom and Dad were out for the night and I was in charge of babysitting her. It had gone fine, but around 9 p.m. when I was pretty sure I had tucked Jenna into bed to go to sleep, I had saw her. We had a big backyard and a glass door to get on the back porch. Jenna liked to jump rope or draw with chalk on the porch, and there she was, just standing out there. I was mad she'd snuck out of bed, but more importantly, I was worried that Mom and Dad would be upset with me because it was cold and raining. "Jenna, get inside," I ordered in my best tough guy voice. She just stood there. "Jenna," I said louder this time, "for God's sakes, are you just gonna stand there? Get your ass inside." Putting my hand on the door handle, I was ready to drag this little girl back into her room by her hair if she didn't. "Adam," I heard from behind me. I saw her in the reflection of the glass. It was Jenna, still in her pajamas, looking groggy. I turned around to face her. "What are you doing? Who is that?" I could see it in her face the moment that I registered what she was looking at. It was her. She screamed, and I hoped she couldn't see it in me, but I was scared too. When I turned back around to the glass door, the other Jenna was even closer to me. I noticed my hand was still on the door handle, and I quickly jumped away from it as my sister ran to hide behind me. We just stared at the thing outside, both of us frozen in terror. Suddenly it started screaming. "Adam, what are you doing? Who is that?" it said. It was mimicking my sister, but it just sounded so warped, like a record that was melting in a house fire as it spoke. Its mouth opened up in a way no humans could. At this point, I had given up trying to be brave in front of Jenna. We were both screaming and in tears. The thing outside started banging on the glass so hard I was scared it would break. It just kept repeating those same phrases so loud my ears were hurting. Jenna and I eventually curled up together, sobbing. I'm not sure when it stopped. All I know is I woke up on the floor as my parents were frantically trying to get Jenna and I up. We tried to tell them what happened. At this point, I think they knew something was up in the house. There had been a few times I had noticed them frazzled when they saw me, swearing I had been someone else. I think they just wanted to come off as rational adults, but I knew deep down they were scared too. It's not like they didn't try to be rational. They got our house tested for gas leaks, stripped the walls looking for black mold. They took us to a therapist. There was just no rationalizing whatever lived in that house with us. As I grew into a teenager, I really tried to get to the bottom of whatever was happening to us. I searched for hours to find a priest or a paranormal investigator, or literally anyone in my area that would charge less than $300. I eventually found one, an old, short Catholic priest who barely spoke any English. He had just moved from Mexico and said he would bless our house for free as long as we brought our friends to his church every Sunday. Mom and Dad looked at me funny when I told them what I had done, but they didn't protest. Maybe deep down they were looking forward to it. I met him, Father Arturo, outside of our home. He greeted me warmly. I noticed he had holy water in his bag, which made me a little bit nervous. When he got inside our house, though, his demeanor changed almost completely. On the walk in, he was kind and gentle, like a grandpa. He became frantic when he entered. I can see the sweat on his brow as his hands started to shake. He quickly whispered a prayer in Spanish under his breath, shaking his head. I saw him reach for the door again. "Wait, Father Arturo," I said. "Come back. What's going on?" He took my hand and looked at me with pure desperation. What he said next I think about at least once a day. "It wants to replace you." Me, Jenna, and a few of my friends did go to his church after that, as promised, but he didn't speak to us much. I tried to lay low the next couple years. I worked as much as I could, partially to make money and partially to spend time out of the house. I tried to ignore anything or anyone I saw in the house. I made Jenna remember a code word so I always knew it was her. Eventually, I got enough money to move out, which pretty much catches up to where I started. Jenna stays with me whenever she can. She's 12 now. I don't think she's been home for a while. I don't talk to my parents much anymore. I came out a few years back and they really didn't take it well. I haven't blocked them or anything, but they haven't reached out in a year and I haven't either. Last week, though, something happened. I had gotten a text in our family group chat, which hadn't been active in months. Dad had invited Jenna and I over for Thanksgiving dinner, and I always told myself I'd forgive them if they reached out. So nervously, I agreed. I tensed up when I stepped foot on the property again. I hadn't been back since I moved, and things looked unfamiliar. You'd think it would be a relief to go back to your childhood home, but I felt nothing but negative emotions. I stepped over a huge pile of dirt on the pathway to our house, and I rolled my eyes. We lived on a massive property that had potential to be beautiful, yet Dad had always found a way of ruining it. We let ourselves in. I admit the smell of turkey did remind me of the bit of a few happy childhood memories I did have, and I began to get excited. "Come on in," I heard in a familiar voice, and Jenna and I hurried toward the dining room. But that's when we saw him. Suddenly, I had a flashback to the first memory I ever had here. It wasn't Dad. His eyes didn't have the same kindness as Dad's did. He was just staring at us menacingly. His eyes. This was not Dad. There was no soul behind whatever this was. Jenna and I exchanged glances. Without needing to say anything, we ran. I didn't look back for a long time. I could hear it chasing after us. In fact, I didn't look back until we were almost at my car. When I did, it was on all fours, running after us like an animal. Needless to say, I drove home as fast as I could. I think I even ran a couple red lights from what I could see in the mirror. It didn't chase us past the house, but I wasn't taking any chances. Jenna and I haven't been back since. There are still questions I don't know the answers to. Where was Mom? Why didn't it chase us all the way home? Most importantly, where was my real dad? If you read this far, I'm not sure what to say to you, but maybe next time you see a loved one, you should look at them a little closer. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Mining Mysteries, and I will see you all in the next one. Goodbye!